when I have too many goals, I'm too distracted on stuff, then I don't get anything done, right? It's just overwhelming. There's like 7 goals on the page. And you're like, what do I start with? That's why I've landed on 3 goals. And the process itself of only picking 3 goals makes you figure out what to work on. So I have a bunch of stuff I want to work on. Then you go, okay, which of these goals, if I finish, will cascade and do all the other goals?
This week, I'm sharing the second part of my conversation with copywriting expert Neville Medhora. Now, Neville was the copywriting genius behind brands like The Hustle and AppSumo in their early days. If you've heard the first part of this conversation, you'll know this was a ton of fun, and I'd highly recommend you go back and listen to that. I'll have the links in the show notes and description below. But in this part of the conversation, you're going to hear Neville breaking down and sharing some of his copywriting secrets, the secret psychology behind copywriting. We talk about how copywriting has changed over time and how it might be influenced by the rise of AI and how that might change marketing, how that might change the way that we sell things, the way that we receive things, and also the jobs for people that do things like that. And Neville breaks down exactly how copywriting works with specific formulas that he shares in this episode. And finally, we talk a little bit about productivity, how to set the right goals, set the right focus, and change what your focus is based on the time frame that you're in. This was a really great episode. I'd highly recommend you go back and listen to the first part, although you don't need to have listened to it to get the full value out of this. The link will be in the show notes and description. If you love this episode, you can get the full show notes, transcript, and read my newsletter at theknowledge.io. You can find Neville online on Twitter at NevMed, and his website's copywritingcourse.com and swipefiles.com. I'll have the links in the show notes. If you loved this episode, please do share it with a friend, and don't forget to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, because it helps us tremendously to find other listeners just like you. I want to ask you a bit about how copywriting has evolved, or like the evolution of the space in general. But just going back, it's funny how, like you say, back then, there was so much you had to learn from scratch. And even for me, I'm quite surprised that, I mean, I guess it makes sense because I was young. So I was trying to figure out why I didn't learn any of this stuff back in those days. But I think, yeah, I was quite young in the sense that I didn't have a lot of computer time. So even that first site that I have, it was kind of like half online, half offline, because offline, I would just sell like whiteboard clickers we sold to teachers at my school, and my mum was a teacher, so I sold to teachers at her school. And then we used that to then buy phones. So this is around when the first iPhone was coming out. So there was also then like Chinese capacitive phones, but they weren't even trying to make iPhone clones. They were just making completely different stuff, but also with touchscreens. So we would sell some of those. And so that was then what I started selling online as well. But it was a really strange space that, yeah, I don't think I ever figured out the online part of it. Because like you say, I think it was still early enough that people could just find it online. If you just have decent enough descriptions and you do decent enough SEO, I didn't have to figure out the copywriting part too much. But then I did a lot of the marketing offline. I was just trying to think. I was remembering. So first of all, I don't know why my mom let me, but I put this big sticker on her car. So she would be driving around, like, you know, doing errands, doing whatever she needs to do.
Cell phones and then your phone number?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Literally like a massive cell phone, my phone number, all this stuff. And I was in the Yellow Pages. I think you guys had Yellow Pages as well, right? Or if it's called something different. Yeah. So I was in the Yellow Pages. So people would call me. Well, people would call the house, actually. I didn't have a phone. So
it worked? The car thing worked?
A little bit, at least locally, it worked. And then also, okay, I'll tell you what did work. So I used to, and it sounds stupid, actually. I don't know why it worked. I think they still have it now, but back in the day, if you go to like video game stores, they didn't have the discs in the video game. So they would just put the case of the game on the shelf. So I had a ton of business cards. I would go into these video game stores and I would put my business cards inside the game box. So I would either put it inside, but then people would start seeing it like when they took it to the till. And so I would get in trouble. So then what I started doing is, if you open it, you can put it underneath the paper so that it's actually not visible when it's closed. So what would happen is someone would buy the game. Obviously, they'll open it at the counter, put the CD in, they'll take it home. And when they're at home, they'll open it up and my business card will fall out. So now it's in their house. And then they're seeing my business card and they're looking at it. And obviously it's a bit of a magic trick because now you're like, what is this thing? And then maybe you go on my website and you say, hell, you know, some interesting phones. It's whatever, but
that's discoverability stuff. The new version of what you're talking about is like posting short videos and podcasts and stuff, like hoping people see it and then follow along.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's the evolution of it. It used to be posting a page on Yahoo or Google and then just like stuffing it with keywords saying like rave lights, rave lights, rave lights. That was the first evolution. Then search engines get smarter and smarter and smarter. And now like less and less people are using search engines to necessarily find something rather than browsing their social media feed. So you have to be there. So it's kind of like, how do you get organic traffic based on the time of the technology, right? So back in the day, it might have been radio or TV appearances or something like that, and now it's podcasts, social media. I mean, it just keeps changing. It'll probably evolve even more. And then I'm sure when like VR happens, it'll be like a whole different game. Like that's going to be a whole different world.
Yeah, that would be scary, especially when you're wearing your AirPods Pro. You can't even take it off, and ads are just flying into your face from somewhere. But I'm interested to know like how you found this part, because also when even with copywriting, I do remember a particular point in time on the internet where people figured out sales pages, and it became like a standard template. You could go to buy anything, and you know what this, I can see it in my mind. I know what the buttons look like. It's these gold buttons, and then the sales page is really long, and then they've got this picture, and then, or there's a video, and there's a link to some webinar, or there's something. And this could be for any product. It could be for protein shakes. It could be for anything. So how do you find that? I guess it's a recurring thing, but there's a sense in which at various points, people then figure out, oh, this works. And then everyone's trying to optimize for the same thing. And then it starts to work maybe a bit less. Or do you find that the principles that you have figured out have consistently worked? And actually, it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It will just work. Or do you have to adapt in some way?
Well, the psychological principles are the same. The human brain hasn't changed in 10,000 years, right? We all have the same brain as people did 100 years ago. There's no difference. However, like little tactics have changed, right? So if you're talking about like a VSL, like a video that didn't have a play, it just started playing, it wouldn't stop and you couldn't pause it. That used to work really well for a while, especially with like these aggressive marketers. And then like Google was just like, hey, you can't do that. Like it's annoying. Like you can't have it just play as soon as someone goes to the page. They have to be able to pause it, right? And so then if you had that, they just didn't index you. So then no one had it, right? Now you just don't see that anymore. It's not a thing. Tactics change. However, the psychological stuff does not change, right? Making someone internally want to buy something is still very powerful. So if someone says like, oh, my stuff is $100 a month, and people are like, oh, I can't afford that. But then they go and buy a $1,200 iPhone. And you're like, well, they could afford it. They just didn't think it was valuable enough for $1,200, right? So it just depends what it is. So you have to demonstrate why your product is valuable. And a lot of people don't. They're just like, here's what it does. But it's like, okay, that's cool. It's very technical, but like, what can you get out of it? Right? How is this product going to make you money, save you time, make your business better, that type of thing. And that's where copywriting comes in. Just like convincing people why this is a good idea and displaying all the benefits and features and why it's actually going to help them.
Can you tell me a bit more about the basics of copywriting, some of you mentioned the underlying principles of how the human brain works and why you're able to tap into that through the way in which you sell something? I'd be interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think if you just say like, buy this, right? It's a weird example, but yeah, my coffee mug. If you just say, buy this, that's okay, right? But if you use something like the AIDA formula, it's like attention, interest, desire, action. So it's just like, hey, do you want to get more attention on your webinars? I found whenever I use this coffee mug, I get 17% more clicks. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up at this point. So then you interest them with interesting facts about the coffee mug. Say that it's made of shatter-resistant stuff, so it won't break. It's actually really cheap. It gets more engagement. And you say, if you keep this coffee mug by your desk, it'll get people to ask about it. It'll create more engagement and potentially more clicks and more sales. And then you get them to take action on where they can buy it. So the way that you approach something is like informing and educating people first and then getting them to buy it. Whereas I think a lot of people go into like, you need to buy this. This is a great opportunity. The other way you can approach copywriting is in a new technology era, we have so many different touch points with people, social media, email and stuff. And so people are like, how do I make this email really good? I'm just like, how do you make your entire email sequence good? Right? So instead of trying to sell people really hard on the first one, you actually have many, many different points of time where you can hit people up over email, unlimited essentially. But people do unsubscribe or people don't look forward to your email. It goes into the promotions box and then it gets lost forever, right? And so how do we get people to open your emails? And so a lot of copywriting is about how do we just like provide a lot of value to people? So for Copywriting Course, if someone signs up, they get like 6 months of great content for free. And then occasionally we mention the Copywriting Course, or every Friday we send out an email newsletter that's just like all just like good stuff. And at the bottom, maybe it mentions Copywriting Course. So copywriting is approaching it like that? What's the order? What's the sequence of events we can tell people about our product that'll make them want to stay around and that helps them so they want to stay around for a long time? I think that was the thing with AppSumo, that if you're going to try to sell someone every day, why would they stay on? Like, why would they want to be pitched, right? So part of it was discoverability, right? So they to discover new tools. But then also for us, what we had to do was, which made our job a lot harder than just being like, hey, promotion on this software. It's like, we have to learn the software ourselves, use it, showcase how we're using it, showcase how other people are using it to make money, save time, etc., and then sell it. So it is a little bit of extra work to do that, but it is worth it in the long run.
Hey, we'll get back to the episode in just one moment, but I wanted to tell you very quickly about my newsletter. I started sharing everything I was learning
online, and a few thousand people came along for the ride.
I send 3 regular emails. Brainwave fortnightly on a Tuesday, which is about the intersection between technology, philosophy, and psychology. Then every week on a Thursday, I send Revelations, and that's about creativity and productivity. And then finally, every other weekend, I send Wayfinder, and that's about decision making. So people in the audience actually send me really tough problems that they're working through, and I help to deconstruct them using mental models and decision-making frameworks. So if you'd like to subscribe, you can join me and over 20,000 incredibly driven people at theknowledge.io. Okay, back to the episode.
You get a lot of companies that come to you now to help them in some way, shape, or form to do this. What is the part where you usually see them fall down? Like, what's the thing that, because there's a sense in which some of this can seem like common sense. Oh, I'm trying to sell you this thing. I should just tell you why it's valuable and why you should care and make you care about it and blah, blah, blah. But it's something that people struggle with. So like, what is it that usually you find like blocks people?
It's generally pretty simple. It's not like the design of their website or anything. A lot of times you come to their website and these are like B2B companies where the average customer value is 100,000 plus, right? And you read their stuff and they generally designed it by committee. There's a couple of people on a Zoom call and they say, hey, what should we put on here? And then you read it and you're like, what are you selling? Like, I don't get it. Like from the outside point perspective, it's just like, encourage your dreams to grow big. They'll say these weird, like aspirational headlines. You're like, what does that mean? Like, I don't get it. And so that is the biggest problem. So I go in there and I'm just like, hey, we sell services where we chop up your designs and make them into real web apps. Just like a plain English version of it. So actually a lot of the consulting I do, if you were to watch some of the calls, you'd just be like, that's very like obvious stuff almost. But the problem is, and this happens all the time, is you get familiarity blinders. So whenever you look at your own sales page or your own emails, you're just like, I've seen them so many times that it's like, it's hard to like suggest new stuff for it. It's hard to see what people don't see, but then you show it to someone else and they're like, I don't get that part. What does that mean? And you're like, oh, that's a confusing image. They don't know what that means. So you go, let's change that. So I basically go in there and kind of solve the stuff that like they just get familiarity blindness on. I don't usually disclose any like specific details of like private consulting. I actually like just came off a consulting call. And I was like, that's be a good example, but I can't say the company. So
you can give like vague generalities maybe.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is like some of the, especially like larger companies, they won't give specifics. So they're like, we can do this for you, this for you, this for you. And you're just like, what is the main differentiator that you can do over other companies? And let's say they're just like, we could do everything just faster, right? Some companies take a year to do these projects. We could do it in 2 to 4 weeks. And I'm like, where does it say that on your website? And when you just say like, we could do it in 2 to 4 weeks, I think people don't believe you. Can you show them how you do that? And they're just like, well, actually, we have like our own processes and templates and people that have been in the industry for a long time. So like, we don't have to train them. And like we have a high retention rate. So therefore, when people come in, like they know what to do already. These aren't like brand new interns that are taking forever. And I'm like, yeah, let's tell people that. Right. So a lot of times they forget to mention these main reasons that people are signing up. So it's easy for an outsider to be like, let's give them these details. Whereas from inside, that they just sometimes don't think about it. And especially when people write by committee, everyone ends up having an opinion and the message gets all jumbled, like almost every time. Like if there's 50 people on a call, I'm like, this is going to suck. This is always going to be bad. Let's do 2, 3, max 4 people on a call. Like there's no reason to have more.
I know you've got swipe files. Is there any particular way that you recommend people get better at either the specific writing element or anything else that surrounds copywriting?
Be exposed to a lot of good copywriting. What are things that you like reading? So you mentioned like The Hustle is an easy one. You liked reading that and you're just like, okay, what about that do I like? It's like, oh, because they use fun GIFs, they use images, they make their own graphs. They're talking about things in an interesting way. They talk about a thing in the way I care about it, right? So it's like Google released a new AI. And you're like, okay, whatever. But it's like, here's how you can use Google's new AI to make money or whatever. That's interesting to you. So if you notice those types of things, so I'm on the web a lot just for fun, and I collect everything at swipefile.com. So if you go there, it used to just be like a side project I did for my own clients, because when they'd be like, hey, what's an example of a good landing page? I'd be like, oh crap. I just couldn't remember off the top of my head, right? I wouldn't remember all this stuff. So I started putting it there. It's like my own little Pinterest, basically. It should be called Cool Stuff Neville Sees on the Internet, is what swipefile.com should be. But we post a ton on there. And the reason that people use it and that it's gaining traction is that people go that they're just like, I have an idea for my newsletter. I just need some inspiration. And it's hard to type in like, you're inspired from random places. That's what I've noticed. Like if you're trying to make a sales page, just looking at like sales page templates sometimes is like, okay. But then if you look at Swipe File and you see like an old Ogilvy print ad and you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had an image like that and a headline like that? So that's what Swipe File is. Like if you're working on an email, you're working on your newsletter, you're working on sending out your podcast with show notes, you go to Swipe File and see like an idea that sparks another idea in your head. That's the whole point of it. And so I've actually hired a developer onto it. And now we're working on it and adding all these new features. It used to just kind of be like a WordPress blog where I posted stuff. But now there's some pretty cool features that you can actually like store your own swipes. And they were actually putting templates out. So if you want to make your own sales page, it's like it has all these like free Google Doc templates and stuff like that. So Swipe File is growing. We started paying attention to it about 3 months ago. And each year it's like 66% more traffic each month, which is pretty cool. So hoping to get it to about 100,000 per month very shortly, probably in 3-4 months, I assume.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
2 very quick questions on that. One, you do your monthly goals, yearly goals. How do you figure out what goals to set and what the path looks like to hit them? And then I want to ask you a bit more about how you structure the business and how you figure out what to focus on.
Yeah, I try to do 3 monthly goals. If I have more than 3 goals, I generally don't finish them. And I actually post them you can see them over here, but it's right above my wall. And so whenever I'm just kind of like lost on like what I should do one day, I'm just like, I look up there and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the 3 things I got to do. And so I kind of know how much work I can do each month or how long something's going to take at this point. So I make 3 monthly goals. And then my whole month is just revolved around making sure I finish those first. And then after that, free time. But yeah, 3 monthly goals each month. You go to nevblog.com and click on goals, and you'll see like my goals for the last, I don't know, God knows how many years.
How do you figure out which goals are worth setting? Because I think there's also a part where you can set super ambitious goals. You could set all kinds of goals. Like, how do you set goals that you actually make sure that you hit and that first of all, even the fact that you've been posting them for such a long time, it's good accountability, I guess. But, setting meaningful goals, I think is something a lot of people also struggle with, really.
Yeah, trial and error. I used to post it just depends. Like I used to think like revenue goals would really motivate me. It just doesn't. Like there's some like disconnect with it. You just like make this much money in a month. But I think my brain is answering the question of like, why? What am I going to do with it? So I think if there's some like, if I hit this goal, then I get to buy a new car or like invest in this company or something like that. I think that's more useful for me. Or goals that just personally get you a little bit excited. Or goals that you have to, like let's say a client hires you to do something, you have to finish it by a certain date. That's a good reason to have a goal, right? You have a deadline. Hard deadlines are very good. So that's how I decide. It's just been over the years, I've noticed that when I have too many goals, I'm too distracted on stuff, then I don't get anything done, right? It's just overwhelming. There's like 7 goals on the page. And you're like, what do I start with? So that's why I've landed on 3 goals. And the process itself of only picking 3 goals makes you figure out what to work on, right? So I have a bunch of stuff I want to work on. Then you go, okay, which of these goals, if I finish, will cascade and do all the other goals? Right. So let's say my goal is to like get more followers or whatever. Right. It's like, okay, what goal can I put that will create that result? So it's like maybe replying to 3 posts a day and posting 1 video a week will get me to that number. So then that would be the goal. But just saying like get 5,000 more followers, to me, that's not a really good goal. It has to be a process goal. Yeah. So what would lead to that? And that's the goal, not the actual like end result.
And then in terms of like the business as a whole, how do you figure out, I guess this kind of circles a little bit back to some of what we discussed before about the idea that I was writing about this for a book that I've been working on, actually, like this idea that even if you look at someone like Shaquille O'Neal, or a lot of people are good examples of this, you get really good at something, but then because you're actually good, maybe not just at that thing, but at other things, it can then distract and divide your attention. And actually suddenly you're trying to do a bunch of different things that might reduce your capacity to do the one thing well, right? So you've got
a few different projects that you're working on. You've made some investments in the past. You do some consulting. How do you figure out like what your business and how things should be structured and where you should pay the most attention? Because you've got some YouTube stuff, you've got swipe files, you've got the copywriting course, you've got consulting. In any kind of world, you could say, maybe I just do a consulting and that's all we do. And that's a consulting business. And that should be 100% of the energy. How do you figure out like how to find that balance between the different things?
Well, I think you have to make sure they all go into each other, right? I think the concept is called like a flywheel. Nathan Barry talks about that a lot,
Yes,
like
yeah,
a creator
yeah.
flywheel or something. So everything you do feeds into something else. And so I've always structured it around that. So for example, swipe file is like the base level. It's like I see a bunch of stuff. I take screenshots on my phone. I take screenshots on my computer. Then I upload like, hey, I saw a cool ad. I saw a cool billboard. I saw this car that had an ad on it. I thought that was neat. So I just post a bunch of that crap. Now, most of it's kind of like whatever, 80% of that probably goes nowhere. But then every week at the end of the week, I need to write my newsletter and I go to swipefile.com and I rate it and I just like steal all the stuff from there. It's my own stuff. So I'm not stealing it, but I just take all the ideas from there and then that goes out and hopefully gets more people. And then if a lot of people read that newsletter, then a certain percentage of those join Copywriting Course, which is where I make money. A certain percentage of those will hire me or follow me and later buy something. And then like, as I get more attention on the different platforms, you get more access to things. Perhaps you can sell something better. And so everything's kind of like a flywheel. Like it should all go into each other. Right. So if I make a post on Copywriting Course, I'm like, okay, that can go in my newsletter. That could also go on Swipe File. So if I make 10 custom images for a post, I could put all of those on Swipe File as well. So I think all of my projects like roll into each other and I'm trying to make it more and more like everything I do goes into the next thing. So if I make a YouTube video or a podcast interview, I put that out on Copywriting Course and people see that. And then let's say a new person watches that interview is like, hey, this is pretty cool. Who's this guy? They subscribe to me. 2 years later, they buy something from me. So it all kind of relates to each other. So the goal is to have everything in a nice little flywheel feeding each other.
And how do you figure out what to do financially? I mean, you've been quite successful even from high school / university time. I know like
I've never been poor. Yeah.
Yeah. But you get to make like investments. You invested in The Hustle, I think. You invested in
Hustle, AppSumo, Pink Job. Yeah, like a bunch of different
Yeah.
companies. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think about like the investments that you make and what that looks like?
Most of them were like The Hustle. Like I knew Sam when he was like, for lack of a better word, like a nobody, kind of like he wasn't like a popular guy like he is now. And he was starting The Hustle. And I had known him before. And I was just like, this guy's impressive. So when he started a company, I wanted to invest. He actually had to convince me to invest because I had no idea what he was talking about. So I invested in that. And then like they raised another round of funding. I paid more money, et cetera, like that kind of thing. Noah, he was building AppSumo off my couch, right? So we were like interlinked. I have equity in the company. I was actually working at the company, doing all the copywriting, hiring all the copywriters, all that kind of stuff. So I worked in that. I have advisory shares in a bunch of different companies. And the thing is, it's like, most of these things don't pan out. Just because you invest in a company doesn't mean you made money from the company, and you might never make money from the company. The way I've tried to view it, with very few exceptions, is like, if I don't make any money from this company or just lose my investment or time investment or money investment, will I learn stuff from them? So for example, with The Hustle, I was like, I'm not going to make money from this, or I didn't know if I was. I ended up making money, but also like they were throwing HustleCon. So I got to go backstage and hang out with the founder of WeWork and Casey Neistat or whatever, like just all these cool people, and be involved in that. And then see like what kind of Facebook ads were working, what wasn't working, what was working with their newsletter, what wasn't working. And then I could apply that to my own business. So for me, it was almost like paying to be part of that behind the scenes knowledge. And for me, that's the way I viewed all these investments. And then apart from that, I think investing in, like, I've put my portfolio out there. It's basically all the bare metal companies and Tesla. So the bare metal of the internet, like who runs the internet? It's Amazon, AWS, Google, Apple, Facebook, and a couple others that run, majority of the bare metal on the internet, meaning the servers. Like if they disappeared, the internet would be gone. So there's a few different investments that are just like, okay, if I just hold it and do nothing over the long run, will this go way up? I think there's some others like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then like something like Tesla, where you just like see their pace in like self-driving and how far ahead they are of everyone. And you're just like, this is going to be the biggest automaker in the world, bar none. I mean, it's not even going to be close. So different things like that. That's how I view investments. And then angel investing is like, I want to be along for the ride of that.
So you've mentioned AI before. How do you see that changing the way that, I mean, the way you do copywriting? Do you think that there's a sense these days where I think as people apply AI to a bunch of things, people are just like, oh, AI could just do this. You know, even you said AI could be your lawyer, maybe it could be your copywriter, maybe it could do some of the basics of the things that you do. But
Mhm.
for the people that actually do those jobs, sometimes there's also a feeling that, hold on, the mouthfeel that I have as a person that does this job is different from this generic thing that the AI is doing. And actually, it might be a great starting point, but actually, I might do it differently as a lawyer or as a copywriter. How do you feel about the
Mhm.
way that you use AI yourself and the way that companies might use it to do some of the copywriting they need to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a countdown till your job is fucked. I mean, like you have to update it. There's no way around it. It's coming for your job, and the thing is, it just depends on your perspective. Like this is nothing new in history, right? Like stuff keeps advancing every generation. Our parents had this. Like our parents thought like being lawyer, being doctor was the great job. Now, like being lawyer, doctor is like not necessarily a great job. Sometimes,
Yeah.
some places, but I know a lot of doctors that do not like their job. So you're just like your whole worldview gets upended every few decades, right? And we are no different. You're just older. That's why this seems scary because you're used to a certain thing and now it's changing, and that's scary to a lot of people. A lot of young people are like, "Oh, thank God AI is here to do all this crap. I don't want to write stuff. I want to put out content, but I don't want to like edit it and write HTML. That's stupid. Like just let the computer do that, right?" So you have to keep updating your way of doing things. So for example, I'll categorize copy into like low level, medium, and high level copy. Low level copy is like an email that goes out saying your password was updated, right? ChatGPT can make that email very easily and make a billion different versions of it and even make it personalized to every single person, right? It's really good at that. Medium level copy is like a case study or something like that. It can tell a pretty good case study and it's getting better. Humans are still better at it, but damn, it's catching up really, really quick. So let's say you knock that off. And then high level copy is like Mark Andreessen, the venture capitalist, like pontificating stuff on Twitter, right? That's a high level thing. It's not about the words that he's writing on the page, but rather like his whole life experience distilled down to like a couple of characters. That's high level. I have not seen AI be really good at that, but I've seen it assist in it. And so actually the way that these things are being used in the real world is different than you expect. We all thought when GPT-2 was coming around and like GPT-3 was being released that like everyone should be writing blog posts with AI, right? Be able to write really fast blog posts. Turns out no one gives a shit about blog posts anymore. Like it's just like not like the way to get attention anymore. So it's like, yeah, you can make 1,000 blog posts a minute, but it's like they don't help you. So okay, that didn't turn out like we thought. What it does happen is like, let's say you're writing something about an experience you had or like a project you're doing, you can use AI to research stuff. You could be like, who are other people that have done similar businesses like this? Give me their names, how much they made, find all everything you can about it. And it just goes and finds it, right? Or I'm like, how many times a day does Elon Musk tweet? Before I'd have to go research that or have someone else go research that. Now it's like, it just does it. Right. We wanted to record a bunch of short videos about like different rebrands throughout history. And I used to go just like browse the web, type in rebrand history, click. Now I'm just like, find all the rebrands that were between $100 million and $1 billion that have actual images I can use for before and afters. And I'll go find them all. And then I can make a post out of that. And it'll give me 30 different examples. I'll say that one good. That's one. This one, there's 8 of them that are good. The rest suck. So that's how we've been using AI as kind of like this like sparring partner. And then the other use case is for writing basic web apps and creating things and mocking things up very quickly. So if I want to make a tool, a lot of times I get really excited and I'll have my developer make it. And then later I'm like, this isn't that useful. Now I could just make it locally and use it for a while. And then I'm like, after like a day, I'm like, this isn't actually isn't that useful. So you can rapidly create things from nowhere and turn it into reality very quickly using AI. You could do research much better. So posts that I couldn't have made before, I can now make with AI. But the use case we thought of, like everyone's just going to write a bunch of blog posts, like that didn't really happen like that. But this whole new wave of things did. So it's just like people who used to be copywriters that would just write blog posts for big companies. I mean, they still exist. I think their jobs are going to change a lot. And it's going to be the people that are really good with AI and tech are going to 10x, and the people that don't will just be left in the dust.
Does it change how because you do your goals and plans for the year? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you think like a few years in advance. And also, I mean, even when you think about, let's say 2 years ago, where AI was, it would be
It didn't
hard to even
exist.
have imagined like
Yeah.
what you could do right now, do you think about how it changes the way you think about the future of what you're doing and how
Yeah.
you like plan for that?
Yeah, if you could read like the Reddit /r/Reddit on the Reddit copywriting thread, people are like, is AI going to kill this? It's like, if you're asking, it is. Yeah, it will kill it in some way. But what happens is like technology like kills things and then rebirths them in different ways. My most recent video was about like travel agents were completely destroyed by the internet. But now there's a whole resurgence of these like travel hacking people that like take all your points and then book a trip for you, or like these hyper localized companies that will say like, you're going to South America. Well, we'll plan like the best South America trip you can. Like you can ask ChatGPT the best stuff, but we're going to tell you like from a local perspective. So it's like travel agent, like the industry's like bigger now, but in a different way. It's travel bloggers, travel Instagram people. And so it's like, it just rebirthed in a different way. So it kills the old stuff and rebirths it anew. And so I think people have to be ready for that and just play with it. I mean, the easy answer is like, and here's the thing, you just play with all this stuff for free. Like you don't, it's not some like really hard thing. I would actually posit like back in the day it was harder because you had to be technical. You had to be pretty technical. Now with some of the new AI stuff, you could be like just adult and just talk to it. Like you don't have to know programming and stuff. When you were doing Front Pager and Dreamweaver, that was technical work that most people didn't understand at the time. That's why you were able to profit off of it. But now you don't need to be that technical. It sure as hell helps though. If you are technical, you probably will earn more. Yeah.
Maybe this will be the last question I ask you, but I think going right off the back of that, where do you think the best starting place would be to learn now? Considering that you have AI, you have all these tools, things are quite different. Before, and it could be the same now, but you might have said, oh, just go get the Boron letters, go and start reading Ogilvy, blah, 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 because you were starting from a blank page. You were always going to start from a blank page. You probably need to familiarize yourself a lot with, what people have said before, what things are like before, but I could probably just type into ChatGPT, like, just tell me, summarize what Ogilvy says about copywriting or whatever. It might not be great. And I don't necessarily advocate for that in all circumstances. But,
it's good.
There's that tension there as well. Yeah.
Well, not only, I mean, summarization is like step one. Now you can just say, do it like them and they'll do it. Right? Like that's the cool part about AI. It's not just like summarizing it and give me like bullet points of what Ogilvy said. It's just like write this copy like Ogilvy. But here's the thing. I think you can't be attached to like your idea of like what good writing is and stuff. And so people are just like, in the future, people may not even write and people now can't understand that, but you're just like, okay, if it wasn't a tool that was able to do this, and now you can say, write like Ogilvy and add about selling dinosaur mugs, and it will do it. And it'll do it a million different ways. And you can customize it. Now you can say, make it in Spanish, make it in French, make it shorter, make it longer, add an image, create a custom image for it, and it'll do it. That is a very, very big shift in the world. Right. And so I think people need to be using it all the time. Now, I think what makes people less afraid of AI is when they start using it all the time, you realize that's not perfect and there still is like some time to go and you realize what else it can do. So for example, like the AI images, I was like, I'm going to go all AI images because I make a lot of stick figures and stuff and it takes a lot of time to like make them. And so I started using AI and it's just like, I was spending more time to like just tune it and get it to the right place. And it was never exactly what I wanted. And I was like, but I can just draw it. Like I know what I want in my head and I can just draw it out and get exactly what I want. It ended up taking me less time to make the custom images than the AI, right? Currently. So, in 2 years, we might have a different conversation. So it's just kind of like the same thing. So even whenever I'd write tweets, I'd be like, write a tweet about this. And it's like it never came out the same way. But what I realized was it came up with a lot of like interesting angles I never thought of for tweets that I can write. So I think just using it gets you pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think there's definitely been times I've tried to at least see like what it looks like if AI does some writing and stuff. And it's just not, it's not good. I think at least for me and for a lot of people, if you have an individual style, there's a way that you like to write, a way you like to communicate. But what it is good for example, maybe 2 use cases is one, I make a lot of notes. Like I handwrite a lot of notes. I can just dump all my notes in and just say, okay, organize this. Cause I was thinking very randomly when I was writing this stuff down. Can you just structure this in a way that I normally would have done that, but I would have had to sit down for like 45 minutes and filter through my own thoughts. How about you just look at it for 5 seconds and just structure all this stuff that I've said? So that's one use case. And then another, like you said, is finding angles, is, just giving me ideas, because I have written for enough time that I will have a sense of what sucks. So instead of me spending all the time and thinking of, okay, should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? How about you just do it very quickly? Give me 5 different ways that would have taken me, the next 20 minutes to an hour. And I would just know what sucks, and I will figure out very quickly the direction I should be going in, and it just helps you to shortcut things in that way as well.
It's quite a useful tool. I don't view it as like us versus them kind of thing. It's like there's this new tool and like, I don't know, get used to it. Just use it. And it's like the easiest thing to use. It's very and free. So
thank you so much for tuning in. Please do stay tuned for more. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps the podcast. And follow me on Twitter. Feel free to shoot me any thoughts. See you next time.